Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Charts with Dan. I have to apologize first of all for how grainy and rough the video looks. I of course left a piece of equipment back home that would allow me to mount my camera to film on my phone, which is what I usually do. So it doesn't look as great as it usually does, but that's okay. You're here to see the numbers anyway. I am in Los Angeles, by the way. That's why I'm not in my studio currently. If you missed it, I made my return to Movie Fights yesterday. You can watch that right now over on the Screen Junkies channel. I'm going to put up a little thing up there so you can click on it to watch the video. It was so much fun to go back and do Movie Fights, but Sunday was a travel day. I was tied up yesterday, which is why the show's a little bit later than usual today, but that's okay. No matter what time the show comes out, the numbers are the same, at least when we're using the final numbers. So let's jump into the box office for this past weekend. And the number one movie was GOAT, which was actually the number two movie last weekend. It dropped just 38%, brought in $16.8 million. It's now at $58.1 million overall. Wuthering Heights, which was last week's number one movie, was the number two movie at $14 million, just over $14 million. It had a 57.3% drop. We talked last week about its box office performance. It had an okay opening. This is not a great hold, especially for a movie that you're hoping would appeal to an older audience. 57.3%, that's usually what you see with, a comic book movie or something like that, something that should be a little bit more front-loaded. So maybe some reason for concern there. It's at $59.8 million. Again, I think it's going to be profitable overall, but not a big hit by any stretch of the imagination. Wuthering Heights is now Margot Robbie's 8th highest grossing film overall domestically. It's above The Suicide Squad and Focus, and it's about $25 million behind Birds of Prey. So we'll see how it does in the weeks ahead, but not a great second weekend. And while we're talking about Wuthering Heights, I wanted to go ahead and jump ahead to the results from last week's member poll. I asked members here on the channel if they thought that Margot Robbie was an A-list star, because that definition is changing just a little bit, and I was actually kind of surprised by how runaway the results were here. 87% said yes. Yes, by the way, would have been my answer as well. I do think that she's an A-list star because box office performance isn't just what defines that, but I thought that there'd be a little bit more disagreement among members here on the channel, but 87%, an overwhelming number, saying that yes, Margot Robbie is an A-list star. I Can Only Imagine 2 opened in third place at $7.7 million. That's less than half of what the original film opened to back in, I believe, 2018. So I don't know if they're really building a franchise here. I Can Only Imagine 2 was able to put up one of the 10 best opening weekends of the year, though, at $7.7 million. That puts it at number 10, right behind Greenland 2, Migration. Crime 101 dropped 61.4%, so not a great second weekend for that movie either. It made $5.5 million, and Send Help spends a fourth week in the top 5. It brought in another $4.4 million. It's now at $55.4 million overall. In sixth place was the new film from Glenn Powell and A24, How to Make a Killing, at $3.56 million. Speaking of A-list stars, Glenn Powell's another one that seems very popular personally, but not exactly a box office draw. This is a much smaller film than something like The Running Man, but still, the sixth place debut, not overly impressive there. Epic, Elvis Presley in Concert had a good start. This was an IMAX-only run for its first weekend. It made $3.2 million. It's expanding to more theaters this upcoming weekend. Solo Mio dropped to 8th place at $2.3 million. Zootopia 2 spends a 13th week in the top 10. It brought in another $2.2 million. It's now at $423.8 million. And let's take a look at this race for number one, the number one movie released in 2025 between Zootopia 2 and a Minecraft movie. We've been tracking this for the last several weeks, and over the last month, you can see what Zootopia 2's long legs at the box office have done for it in this race against Minecraft. So for these last 29 days of Minecraft's run, it was basically done at the box office. Zootopia 2 has slowly been closing the gap, and by my calculations, it should pass a Minecraft movie today or tomorrow, possibly, to become the highest grossing movie of 2025. On next week's show, we will make that official. But this has been a really interesting thing to watch, the fact that Zootopia 2 was a Thanksgiving release. It did well at Thanksgiving, it hung around, it did very well at Christmas. We're now here in February, and it's still doing well enough at the box office to close this gap between it and a Minecraft movie. So in the record books, unless Zootopia 2 just drops to a $0 gross, it will now be the #1 movie of 2025. This is the 2025 annual domestic box office list. You can see that Zootopia 2 is now just ahead of Lilo and Stitch, and is about $200,000 or so away from becoming the #1 film. I don't see a situation where that doesn't happen. So that is going to be your 2025 top 10. Avatar: Fire and Ash settling in there at #4. Lilo and Stitch #3. Zootopia 2 will soon be #1. And a Minecraft movie will be a close second place. It's crazy that we are still deciding the #1 movie of 2025 here at the end of February 2026. Rounding out the top 10, we had Avatar: Fire and Ash for its 10th weekend in the top 10 at $1.78 million. It's now getting very close to crossing that $400 million barrier. Dropping out of the top 10 this past week, we had Iron Lung, which is out after 3 weeks, but an incredibly impressive run for an independently filmed and distributed movie. 2026's Dracula is out after 2 weeks. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die is out after 1 week. Looking at the biggest theater count changes this past weekend, The Strangers Chapter 3 crashed out of theaters. It lost 1,708 theaters. It's out of wide release. It's only in 857. Just no appeal for this movie, really. The Moment also lost almost all of its theaters. It lost 1,012 theaters. It's now in just 107. So the Charlie XCX faux documentary not having a long run at the box office. Iron Lung lost 805 theaters, but it's still in 1,640. Solo Mio lost 700 theaters. It's still in 2,300. And Melania lost over half of its theater count at 699. It's still in 505. This is something we've been checking in with all year. This is the 2026 box office versus the 2025 box office. Last week, 2025 had a big edge because of the debut of Captain America: Brave New World on that weekend last year. This week, we were right about even again. There was only a 4.8% difference between 2026's box office and 2025's. That was largely because Captain America: Brave New World had a very bad second week. And even though we didn't have some huge holdovers, Wuthering Heights and GOAT and the other movies that were in release were able to shore it up enough to bring us about on par with last week. And we'll see on next week's show how the debut of Scream 7 puts us in comparison to last year. But so far, I would say that we're having a pretty good 2026. The only week that 2025 really had it over this year was last weekend with the debut of Captain America: Brave New World. And that brings us to our member poll question for this week. As I said, Scream 7 is the big release this weekend, and I want to know what Scream sequel you think is the best. So we're discounting the original movie. What Scream sequel do you think is the best one? I couldn't do it just as a straight poll. YouTube doesn't allow me to leave enough options for you to just vote. So you're going to have to go to the member poll, leave your answer in the comments there. Because there are so few answers, even more than usual, upvote your favorite if it's already there instead of leaving it again, because it makes it much easier for me to tabulate the results. But I'm interested to see what you think the best Scream sequel is, because I think there's some pretty good competition. That also brings us to our Charts with Dan trivia question for this week. The original Scream opened on December 20th, 1996 and placed 4th at the box office on its opening weekend. It had a very good run after that. But I want to know what movie, which was spun off from a TV show, was #1 at the box office the weekend that Scream opened. I'll let you think about it for a few minutes. It was a youth-centered TV show, or at least it was appealing to the youth, if that helps. And the answer's coming right now. It was Beavis and Butthead Do America, the #1 movie the weekend that Scream released, although Scream would end up grossing much more domestically than Beavis and Butthead Do America. But man, people were just, I remember I went to see it on opening weekend because I was 13 years old, and as I said, that was the movie to see. But Scream, I think, with the longer legacy. So that's what's going on at the domestic box office, but I want to turn quickly to the international box office because this was the biggest week of the box office year in China. It was the Chinese New Year celebration. There's always a flood of new movies. It's the biggest window for movie going all year in China, and the top 5 films, or 4 of the 5 films this weekend, are from China. At #1 was Pegasus 3 at $152.1 million, and that's just for the Friday through Sunday window. We'll look at the total so far in just a second. This is the 3rd film in the racing franchise, and it was the movie that more Chinese filmgoers picked this past weekend than any other movie. At #2 was Blades of the Guardians, which also had a domestic run this past weekend. We're going to see it again on the show. It was directed by Yuen Wu-ping, who is a legendary fight choreographer and action storyteller, and it's the story of a bodyguard on a protection mission across the Gobi Desert. In third place was Scare Out at $41.4 million. This is from Zhang Yimou, who is one of the most successful directors in China's history. It is a spy thriller. In fourth place, we had Boonie Bears, The Hidden Protector at $35.7 million. Boonie Bears is a very popular animated franchise in China. This is the 12th Boonie Bears film. There's been a Boonie Bears movie every year since 2014, except, of course, for 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic had basically shut everything down in China. And then Wuthering Heights rounds out the top five at $26.3 million. It dropped 37.4% internationally, so not quite as steep a drop internationally as we saw domestically. When you take those international numbers, you combine them with our domestic numbers, we get the top five films worldwide, but China dominates this because it was such a big weekend there. So number one was Pegasus 3 at $152.1 million, but it has banked $372.8 million since opening last week. So a big hit there for that franchise, and it traditionally has done well at the Chinese box office. Blades of the Guardians with $51.1 million is in second place. It's brought in over $100 million since it was released. Scare Out is in third at $41.4 million. It's brought in $112 million since it was released. Then we have Wuthering Heights with a 46.1% worldwide drop in a $40.3 million weekend. It's now made $152.1 million. And Boonie Bears, The Hidden Protector brings in $35.7 million over the weekend. Its total since opening in China is $90.8 million. Let's return now to the domestic box office, and we will start with some of the specialty charts. The per theater averages for this past weekend. At number one was Billy Preston, That's the Way God Planned It, which brought in $15,000 in one theater. Epic, Elvis Presley in Concert, playing in 325 IMAX theaters, brought in $9,894 per theater. That's good enough for number two. Pillion continues to have a very successful limited release run. It brought in $6,477 per theater in 89 theaters. Sirat, which is an Oscar nominee this year, in 23 theaters, brought in $4,665 per theater. And GOAT, the only wide release on this list, brought in $4,363 per theater in 3,863 theaters. These were the top films in limited release this past weekend. At number one, we have Epic, Elvis Presley in Concert in 325 theaters. It brought in $3.2 million. The 2026 Oscar shorts, playing in 356 theaters, brought in almost $1 million total. We usually see these on the limited release chart at the beginning of every year. Blades of the Guardians, which, as I mentioned, had a big run in China, also opened in 184 theaters here in the United States, and it had some crossover appeal. It brought in $760,000 total. Pillion in 89 theaters brought in $576,000, and Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie in 384 theaters had a good week too. It brought in $564,000. This is our 2025 annual domestic box office. We have a new number one right now. Wuthering Heights is the number one movie of the year, released in 2026 domestically at $59.8 million, but GOAT is right behind it. And if this pattern holds, I think next weekend we should see GOAT as the number one movie of the year, unless Scream 7 completely over-indexes and has a massive opening weekend. But I think the most likely scenario is that GOAT is the number one movie of the year next week, with Wuthering Heights moving down to second or third place. Send Help is down 2 spots to number 3. Iron Lung down 1 spot to number 4. Primate stays there at number 5. 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple's at number 6. Crime 101 is up 3 spots to number 7. And then Mercy, Solo Mio, and Greenland 2 Migration all move down 1 spot to round out the top 10. These are the highest grossing movies of the year if you count all releases, including movies that were released in 2025. Avatar Fire and Ash is at number 1 with $149 million. Zootopia 2 in second place with $85.9 million. Remember, this is all tickets sold starting on January 1st. The Housemaid is in third place at $69.8 million. Then we have Wuthering Heights up 2 spots to number 4 at $59.8 million. GOAT up 3 spots to number 5. Marty Supreme drops down 2 spots to number 6. Send Help drops down 2 to number 7. Iron Lung is down to number 8. And Anaconda and Primate round out the top 10. And for the first time this year, I also wanted to take a look at the worldwide box office, since we just had this big movie week in China. Right now, Pegasus 3 is the highest grossing movie of the year at $372.8 million. Wuthering Heights, the second highest grossing movie of the year at $152.1 million. Then we have Scare Out at number 3. GOAT is at number 4 at $100 million. Blades of the Guardians is at number 5. Those 5 movies right now are the only ones to make over $100 million worldwide so far this year. Boonie Bears: The Hidden Fortress comes in 6th place, followed by Send Help. Then we have a Russian animated film called Chiburashka 2 at $79.5 million. 28 years later, The Bone Temple's at number 9, and Mercy at $53.6 million rounds out the top 10. So that's what's going on at the box office. Let's take a look now at the world of streaming, and we will start with the latest numbers from Netflix. New ones should be out later today. They might even be out by the time this episode comes out, but this is for February 9th through the 15th. And the number 1 program on Netflix worldwide was the new Tyler Perry film, Joe's College Road Trip, at 23.41 million views. It was actually pretty easily took number 1. In 2nd place was the Netflix original series Unfamiliar with 12.95 million views. Then we have The Lincoln Lawyer Season 4 at number 3, Bridgerton Season 4 at number 4 with 8.16 million views. We should see a big boost for that next week because the second part of the new season comes out later this week. Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich, which is a Netflix original documentary series. It was actually released back in 2020, but of course there has been a lot of renewed interest around it. It comes in 5th place at 7.81 million views. Then we have the Netflix movie State of Fear in 6th place at 7.38 million views. The Netflix movie A Father's Miracle at number 7. Cat Williams, The Last Report, a stand-up comedy special, comes in 8th place with just over 6 million views. Then we have The Investigation of Lucy Letby at number 9, and How to Train Your Dragon, I believe this is the live-action version of the film, brings in 4.91 million views. Now, if you are an eagle-eyed viewer, you probably noticed on this Netflix top 10 that K-pop Demon Hunters was not among the top 10 most watched programs on Netflix for the week that we just covered. And this is actually pretty momentous because this is the first time since June 9th through the 15th that K-pop Demon Hunters has not been on the Netflix top 10. This was the chart for February 9th through the 15th, which means that it had an 8-month run in the top 10 every single week. That's not just a record, that is unprecedented. That is unheard of. No other program on Netflix in Netflix's history, at least as long as they've been releasing these charts, has even come close to that. Just for context, the last time that K-pop Demon Hunters was not one of the 10 most programs on Netflix, Lilo and Stitch was the number 1 movie domestically. Ballerina from the world of John Wick had just come out. Sinners was still in the box office top 10, and summer movies like Superman, F1, and Fantastic Four: The First Steps hadn't even come out yet. Just an incredible run for K-pop Demon Hunters, and quite honestly, it was just barely out of the top 10 this past week. I think it's very likely that we are going to see it pop back onto the top 10 a few more times. But this is the end of its official run, and it's just been an incredible thing to track. Let's take a look now at the latest numbers from Nielsen. Now, unlike Netflix, these are domestic numbers only, not global, and they're delayed by about a month because that's how long it takes Nielsen to release them. So these are the most watched streaming movies for January 19th through the 25th, 2026. The Rip stays on top at 22.96 million hours watched. It was actually almost flat with its debut week, so it did very well domestically. No Time to Die, which was licensed to Netflix from Amazon, comes in 2nd place at 7.6 million hours watched. Then we have Kidnapped Elizabeth Smart at number 3. K-pop Demon Hunters is at number 4. The Running Man on Paramount Plus is at number 5. Sinners is at number 6. It returned to the charts because this was the week that Oscar nominations were announced. So with Sinners getting so many nominations, there was a renewed interest in watching it on HBO Max. People We Meet on Vacation is at number 7. Suitcase Killers at number 8. One Battle After Another is at number 9. And Zootopia is at number 10. These were the 10 most watched streaming shows for January 19th to the 25th. Stranger Things actually retakes the number 1 spot at 27.6 million hours watched as people continue to wind up their time with that final season. Landman on Paramount Plus, though, almost takes the number 1 spot at 26.9 million hours watched. His and Hers comes in 3rd place. The Pit comes in 4th place at 19.85 million hours watched. I think it is another series high as far as watch time. If it's not, it's very close. So a lot of people watching The Pit Season 2 and going back and watching the first season as well. Southland on Netflix is at number 5 with 15.5 million hours watched. Then we have The Closer, Bluey, The Traitors, Grey's Anatomy, and Rizzoli and Isles, which is a legal show, I believe, from quite some time ago. I haven't seen that on the chart before, but it comes in at 13.6 million hours watched. Looking at the most watched streaming shows as far as watch time per available episode. So you take the number of episodes you can watch, divide it by how many hours were watched, That's how you get this number. His and Hers is easily at the top of this chart. It brings in 3.81 million hours of watch time for each of its 6 episodes. Then we have Landman at 1.35 million hours per episode. The Pit comes in third at 1.1 million hours per episode. Then we have the Stephen King miniseries 11/22/63, which saw a big resurgence at the beginning of the year at just over 1 million hours per episode. Fallout on Amazon Prime Video comes in fifth at 971,000 hours per episode. Then we have Stranger Things at number 6, Southland at number 7, The Traitors at number 8, Bridgerton at number 9, and The Closer, rounding out the top 10 with 136,000 hours watched per episode. And those are all the numbers I have for you this week. It was a pretty bare bones episode because it's been a kind of a hectic week with travel and everything. But don't worry, I'll still be uploading stuff as the week goes on. I'm keeping an eye on that Paramount WB story. I'm going to do a review of Scream 7. But before we wrap up this show, I just wanted to let you know about some things you might be interested in watching, both at home and on streaming. First of all, tomorrow on ABC and Hulu, Scrubs is back again, with 2 episodes of the newest revival of the show, so that debuts tomorrow. Also debuting tomorrow on CBS is Survivor 50. I remember watching Survivor 1. We're now up to Survivor 50. I haven't watched the show in a while, but I think this might get me to tune in. They're bringing back a lot of former survivors, and of course this is a landmark season. On Thursday, The Revenant will be playing in IMAX to celebrate its 10th anniversary. You can catch it on Thursday and also on Sunday if you want to see that movie in IMAX. And as I mentioned, Bridgerton Season 4 Part 2 will also get released on Thursday on Netflix, so you can wrap out this latest season. Then on Friday, of course, the big theatrical release is Scream 7, which will be hitting theaters everywhere. I'm going to see it on Thursday night. I'll have my review here for you on Friday morning. Then we have Epic, Elvis Presley in Concert, which will expand from IMAX theaters only to all theaters, so you can catch that in a non-IMAX theater this upcoming weekend. There's also K-Pops, a movie hitting theaters about a soul musician who joins a K-pop band and reconnects with his son. That will be in wide release. In pretty wide release, because this is also playing in my home market back in Arkansas, is an anime film called Uma Musume, Pretty Derby, Beginning of a New Era. It's an anime racing film, and that will be playing in many theaters around the country. Pegasus 3, which we just talked about, is the #1 movie in the world. Will be getting a limited theatrical release this upcoming weekend if you want to check that out. Then on Apple TV Plus, we have the debut of Monarch: Legacy of Monsters Season 2, which is the MonsterVerse spin-off streaming series. Also on Amazon Prime, you can catch Paul McCartney, Man on the Run, a documentary about the legendary Beatles. So we've had a Billy Preston documentary in theaters, a Paul McCartney documentary on streaming. It's a good time for Beatles fans. And then on Sunday on Netflix, we will have the Actor Awards. Now, these were formerly the SAG Awards, but they decided to change their name to the Actor Awards. I don't really like that name, to be honest, but it's the SAG Awards, so we will know who the Screen Actors Guild elects as the best performances of the year. And of course, this is significant because the SAG Awards are often very indicative of how many Academy members might be thinking as well. So I will be tuning into that, and you will definitely get a recap of that show on Monday. I usually would have done the BAFTAs this past Sunday, but like I said, I was traveling. It's been a crazy time, and it was a crazy BAFTAs. Quite the one to miss for a recap show, but you know, sometimes you're traveling, you just can't fit everything in. Also, just a quick note, there will be no live show this week because I'm going to be in LA for the rest of the week. So we won't be doing a live show this week, but you can catch me back next week on the live show. And as I mentioned, you can catch me here on the channel, definitely for a Scream 7 review. As I said, I'm tracking the news with Warner Brothers and Paramount and Netflix to see what new developments there are going to be. Paramount put in a new offer that Warner Brothers is considering. If we find out anything major this week, I will update you here, along with anything else that might come up. So thank you for sticking with me through the grainy bad video. I'll see if I can maybe try to make some adjustment to my hardware here so I can get you at least a better picture quality. But I hope the numbers quality was good. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, go check out Movie Fights on Screen Junkies right now, where I fought for the first time in 6 years, and it was a whole lot of fun. Me, Mike Carlson, Spencer Gilbert, Hal Rudnick hosting, Emma Fife in the fact-checking chair. We had a really good time. But thank you most of all for watching this video. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.